How do, and welcome back. My name is Andrew Hancock and I'm a VMware technical architect from Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. I have worked with the VMware products since their inception in 1998, so that's 23 years I've been working with the VMware product line. Some of you may say if you cut Andy in half it reads VMware like a stick of rock from Blackpool. I've also written over 100 articles for Experts Exchange and won many other awards and accolades. I am honoured to have been accepted into the VMware vExpert program for the last 11 years and more recently a VMware vExpert Pro for the last 2. How do, and welcome back. And in the next 30 minutes in this Hancock's VMware half-hour video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to update VMware ESXi 7.0U2 to ESXi 7.0U2A in 5 easy steps. Now my preferred method is to actually basically use the method that I've actually basically done a video about already, which is basically doing an update direct from the internet if your host has direct access to the internet. However, there are occasions where firewalls and security prohibit the ability for the ESXi host to go off directly to the internet and download your update from the internet. Or you may actually basically feel a lot more comfortable in downloading the update yourself, uploading it to the data store, running the ESX CLI software command to actually update your host that way. Okay, so this is actually based on an article already published at Experts Exchange called How to Update VMware ESXi 7.0U2 to ESXi 7.0U2A in 5 easy steps. If you've been following this article series, you'll know that we've been using a Dell PowerEdge R730 and we're going to use exactly the same server in this tutorial. It's currently running, and I'm going to flick to my iDRAC screen so you can actually basically see there's no smoke and mirrors here. We're running VMware kernel release build 176.30552. There you go, black over, well, grey over green, which is what we'd actually expect. And if I actually basically look at the connection to our host via the host client, we're also basically running Dell ESXi 702 176.30552. If you're unfamiliar with how to connect to the host and some of these things I'm going to be covering in this video, then they are already documented in articles and videos that I've already done for Experts Exchange. So the first thing I actually basically want to do is to put our host in maintenance mode, and we do that basically by right clicking host and we select enter maintenance mode. Are you sure you want to put the host into maintenance mode? And that says yes. You can't put a host into maintenance mode if the virtual machines are powered on, so the virtual machines will have to be powered off or moved to another server or migrated to another server, either cold, or if you have a license for vMotion live migration, you can actually migrate them warm or powered on. So our host is in maintenance mode. And the next thing I want to do, and I covered this in one of my articles and one of my previous videos, is how to actually basically enable SSH so that we can remotely connect to the server. I could sit on the console and do this via iDRAC, but I prefer to do it via SSH, probably because I'm a little bit lazier and I can actually basically cut and paste commands. So again, we select services and we click enable secure shell. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing again and select services and enable console shell. So that's all really I'm going to do at the moment in the host client. I'm not going to do anything else there. So I'm going to minimize that. And I'm basically now going to connect to my console. Windows, if you're using Windows PuTTY, you can download and use that. I've covered this in another article. So as you can see, these articles actually build on other articles in the series that I'm doing. So if you need a refresher, then you can go back and look at those other articles I've written or the other videos that I've recorded as well. Okay, so username is of course that super user account, which is root, and that password. And I actually basically like to create 2 putty sessions. The reason I like to create 2 putty sessions is so that in one putty session I can execute the update command, and in the other putty session I can actually basically use a command familiar to Linux and Unix people called tail, T-A-I-L, and that actually basically allows us to tail the logs or to look at an open log file that's currently being written to. So I can type tail space -f /var log ESX update, which is the name of the log file, and that's actually going to start basically looking at the output that's written to that log file as we progress. At the present, there's obviously not much being written to it. In the second command window is where actually we're going to start getting a bit of a deep dive. I know some people basically a little bit frightened of Linux and Unix bash shells or command prompts, whatever you want to call them. But if you actually basically stick to the commands that I'm using, then you shouldn't have any worries. So the first thing I'm going to do is use a command called VMware-L, which will actually basically show me my current version, which is VMware ESXi 7.0 update 2. And I'm just actually going to go back to my published article, and I'm going to scroll down. The first bit's a bit of a preamble and prerequisites about HCL. Okay, so the first thing we need to do obviously is to download what's called the offline bundle. Now this can actually be found at VMware, and it's often described as the VMware vSphere (ESXi) offline bundle, but more importantly it's got the word depot in it. Some people get a little bit confused and they try to use the wrong file. So basically, a little bit of a tip, it's got the word depot in it. We've already downloaded that to our desktop. I've already checked MB6 DD55. You may have noticed previously that I had our friendly MD5 and SH checksum utility by Raymond Lind, and I've already actually basically checked that the file I've downloaded is correct to my desktop. I'm going to repeat the same again when we actually basically upload it to the host. So downloaded the file. I'm going to use a program called WinSCP, and this is just an SCP client. I've already pre-filled in the values there. So I've already filled in the host name, the username and the password, and I'm currently connected to my VMFS volumes spinning Rust data store. So if I basically just, in this window here, if I just double click, and you can see that ISOs, if you've been following this series, you'll know that we created an ISOs folder directory on our data store, which is Flash, called ISOs. Those are the previous ISOs that we'd uploaded. We'll create some virtual machines shortly with those. So here's our file, and I'm just going to drag and drop over there, and that's basically going to push that up, drop that up to our host server. It shouldn't take very long. It's only about 300 meg. Okay, so I'm actually going to change to that VMFS and you may notice here that I'm tabbing out to speed things up. Okay, and you may notice there that our file is there, and I'm going to do an MD5 sum on that just very quickly. It shouldn't take very long to see whether or not that's been uploaded correctly. It has. Sometimes I don't really think that you're likely to suffer a corruption problem across a LAN, but you are going to be wasting an awful lot of time if you try to apply an update and you've got a corrupted update file, and it doesn't really take an awful long time, and I do like to do what I preach. So MB6 DD5, that's the same value there, the same value matching there. So we finish with that, and we've actually basically finished with our connection here, but I'll leave that open. It's not doing any harm. So I'm going to go back to these open sessions. Remember the top one here, let's minimize that. Top one there is our tailed log file. The bottom one here is where we're actually basically going to type out this big long ESX CLI command. And again, I'm going to refer back to my article. because there's a couple of other things that we need to do. We need to put the console into maintenance mode. Now, I'd already done this. Here. You can do it in the GUI, you can do it at the console. It's entirely up to you. So I've already actually basically put the console, and then we've got this big long line. And I just noticed, actually, I think there's a fault there in my article. It's actually basically put that on 2 lines, and that's actually supposed to be on a single line. And this actually basically catches a lot of people out. So I'll correct that article, but I'm also basically going to show you that at the moment that's actually on 2 lines. If I paste that in, basically it's going to try and execute the first part, try and execute the bottom part, and it's going to fail. Now, I actually see this problem a lot at Experts Exchange when people basically are trying to cut and paste from my articles. Clearly there's a fault on that article, and I'm going to correct that. But that's what your command should look like, all on 1 line. Just to explain that, obviously ESXi software profile update -p ESXi-7.02a, that's the depot file reference, -d, and then basically that full path to our file name. And in fact, actually, it's missing ISOs there. So I'm just going to cut and paste that. And that's what should be in that article. Oh, I'm going to change that later. So I'm going to go back to my sessions, and I'm going to paste that in that window. I'm going to hit enter. The moment I hit enter, we should actually see the tailed log above start to scroll down as it goes off basically and starts to apply that update. It's obviously not going to go off to the internet because this is actually basically a local deployment. So I'm just going to select that SSH connection, and I'm going to hit enter, and we'll actually start to see very quickly, and it actually basically starts talking about things about VIBs and about alt boot bank and boot bank A, and hey presto, as if by magic, we've got an error, we've got a warning. As I said, I like to open up a second connection to tell the logs, because ESXi is not really very verbose, is that the word, verbose? Doesn't really actually provide you with an awful lot of feedback, other than whether or not that your update's been successful or your update has failed. And sometimes you've got to be a bit careful just to read the contents on screen and not assume that it says it's updated successfully when it's not updated successfully. And here basically it's telling us and reminding us that hardware pre-check of profile basically tells me that the CPU support warning, the CPU in this host may not be supported in future ESX releases, please plan accordingly. We've seen that before when we installed this version of ESXi on this host. So if we just basically paste the flag -- no hardware - warning, we can override that function. Now I'd like to actually basically talk about when we actually basically started doing our ESX installation. I'm going to waffle on while it's doing that, because at present there's an awful lot of discussions across Reddit, across the forums, in the vExpert channels that I'm sort of kind of reading and hearing, and recently Dell have published a statement that actually basically states that they are no longer supporting the use of ESXi 7.0 on USB or SD cards anymore. There have been some changes recently in ESXi 7. It's unclear what version has caused this, but in later versions of ESXi 7 it would appear that they are writing more to the SD card or your USB flash card. And if you don't have, and as we know, USB flash drives and SD cards are not really designed for multiple writes. It can potentially wear them out or cause problems. Now, there have been a number of reports already from Dell and HPE that have actually basically turned around and said that SD cards are basically actually causing problems. And from now on, if you're installing ESXi 7 or upgrading even to ESXi 7, you should be using SATA DOM or BOS cards in your servers. Now, there was already a requirement for BOS cards or SATA DOM cards being used with the ESXi if you were using vSAN, because the vSAN trace files were being written to USB flash drives or SD cards. So there was a recommendation that was made: if you're doing a vSAN implementation, use SATA DOM or use BOS, or even install to Spinning Rust, or even install to NVMe or SSD. Do not use SD, do not use USB flash drives. However, of course, we do know that the installation to a USB flash drive and the installation for an SD card has been very popular by many people for many years. Personally, I've not seen an endurance issue at present with 7.0. We have seen issues upgrading to 7.0 with issues which are SD card related, we believe. But now, unfortunately, we've been served a sort of kind of notice by HPE and Dell that says SD card in your server not supported. And this is quite common because HPE and Dell for many years were supplying what they call an IDSM card, or a mirrored SD card solution for a lot of their servers. In fact, actually, in this R7000, in this R730 is a dual mirrored SD card. It's very, very difficult, I think, really to understand what SD cards you've been sold. I've never ever basically taken the SD cards out of this server to see what brand they are. It could be that the brand they're using is a very poor Walmart type brand. No disrespect to Walmart there, but the SD cards that they're using could be very different to a SanDisk type brand. Other brands are available. Anyway, so just as an aside, if you are basically standing up a new installation of ESXi 7 today, or if you're upgrading to ESXi 7 and you have SD cards in your servers and they've been in your servers a long time, just be warned, SD card installation, USB installation, technically no longer supported, and further on down the road you could potentially have issues. If you're doing a vSAN installation, stay away from USB flash drives, stay away from SD cards from the start. And again, the same thing if you're actually architecting a solution or buying new servers, spec them with SATA DOM or BOS cards or NVMe SSDs. Don't go for the slightly cheaper option of using mirrored SD cards. You may get trouble in the future. Okay, so that's just an aside, a little bit of waffle, a little bit of real-time info, which is just cropped up really in the last week or so that we've actually started to talk about this. Anyway, as you can basically see, we've got some lot of stuff down at the bottom screen, down at the bottom connection here. It actually basically confirms that the update completed successfully, but the system needs to be rebooted. We'll do that in a minute. Tells me that the reboot's required, and as you can see, if you look carefully, it tells you the VIBs that have been installed. So the number at the end, 178675351, we'd actually basically expect that to be installed. VIBs removed, these are the older VIBs, 176305552, and VIBs that have been skipped. VIB basically VMware language for a driver type bundle. Okay, so we're done. Our update's been applied, so I'm just going to go back to our host. You can still, it's in maintenance mode, and I'm just going to go right click, and I'm just going to select reboot, and I'm going to say yes, reboot the host, and I'm then going to go back to my iDRAC connection. Seems to have vanished. Just let me put this on pause. Back. Yeah, Probably just caught it then. The iDRAC connection on this particular server often seems to do this. Every now and again it just seems to close the browser down for no window. It could be because I'm not using it. To be honest with you, really, I'm not really a fan of using iDRAC. I much prefer ILO, HPE, or if I can actually basically get hands on the console. And I could hands on the console around the other side. The server's only just the other side here on the rack. Okay, so our server basically is starting to boot up. So I'm just actually basically going to pause this, and I'll speed this up in the post edit. And I'm back. Okay, so as we can see from the virtual console that I have connected to the server via Dell iDRAC, we've now successfully updated the server to VM kernel release build 17867351, which is ESXi 7.0.U2A. Well, that concludes this video. There's not much more to say. You can choose, you can follow my video to do the update direct from the internet, or you can take a few more steps and you can apply it this way. I do think that this is slightly quicker. Although we have a very fast internet connection here, and you're downloading it from the internet, I think downloading it from the internet is slightly slower in applying the update once you've actually basically got it on the data store. But it's entirely up to you. And obviously I do understand that there are some organisations that their ESXi servers do not have direct access to the internet because of the firewalls and the proxies, and that method is just not going to work. But again, if you have a standalone server or a few servers, you have no vCenter server, you have no access to Lifecycle Manager, then this is one easy method of applying the offline bundle update to your ESXi host. So again, thanks very much for watching. A little bit shorter than half an hour. So thanks so much for watching this video. Come back and watch some other videos. I'll put the important bits and in the description, in the steps, and I'll try and find some links to back up those statements about SD cards and USB flash drives. So ESXi 7.0 and later, either new installation or an upgrade. Heed the warning, please don't use USB, please don't use SD cards. Consider SATA DOM and consider BOSS. This should be filtering down through the OEMs now, HPE and Dell. I do not think that they would be supplying or recommending or putting mirrored SD cards into servers, but that really depends on the account manager and your budget. I am aware of a client of ours that's recently taken a shipment of Dell R740s, and they've all arrived with mirrored SD card IDSM solutions. Anyway, so heed the warning. ESXi 7 installation or upgrade, think twice about using a USB or an SD card. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Be safe, take care, goodbye.